The Battle of the Atlantic lasted 68 months, the longest continuous battle of the Second World War. On September 3, 1939, just hours after Britain declared war, a German submarine off the coast of Ireland torpedoed a passenger ship headed to Montreal. The battle for control of the seas had begun. The convoys carrying supplies and troops to Britain were slow and had limited tracking technology. Planes could only escort them so far before they had to return to refuel. So the ships were easy prey for the German submarines, which hunted in groups known as wolf packs. In 1941, German submarines were sinking ships faster than they were being built, and for every U-boat sunk, the Germans built 8 more. By autumn 1942, 2,000 merchant ships had been lost, along with thousands of men and millions of tons of much-needed cargo. The mid-Atlantic became known as the Black Pit.
Bletchley Park hardly looks like a place where wartime secrets were hidden, but the codebreakers at this late Victorian country house, about 50 miles northwest of London, led a double life. The house, built for a wealthy City of London financier, Sir Herbert Lyon, in 1883, was about to be demolished when the British government, on the brink of World War II, acquired it for another purpose. Throughout the Second World War and on into the early years of the Cold War, Bletchley's ordinary domestic appearance belied its real clandestine activity, a purpose that remained cloaked in the Official Secrets Act for years. But here, behind closed doors and hidden deep in the centre of a 60-acre estate, British boffins cracked the Enigma codes of Nazi Germany. Among its most notable early personnel of codebreakers were Cambridge's Alan Turing and Gordon Welchman. Alan Turing was a genius mathematician, computer scientist and cryptanalyst. Unlocking the operation of the Enigma codes made a major contribution to victory for the Allies in World War II and shortened the war by 2 years. What was Enigma? Enigma was an encoding machine developed by the Germans between the First and Second World Wars. It looked a bit like a typewriter, but via a series of mechanically and electrically driven motors inside of it, letters or combinations of letters could be changed into apparently randomly selected substitutes. The codes were vastly more complex than simply substituting one letter for another. In fact, there were potentially hundreds of millions, perhaps even billions of possible combinations. A key changed daily, unlocked the codes so that messages could be transmitted and understood. The bomb, as it was called, was an electromechanical device whose function was to discover some of the daily settings of the Enigma machines on the various German military networks. Its pioneering design was developed by Alan Turing, with an important contribution from Gordon Welchman. At its peak, it was reading approximately 4,000 messages per day. In 1941, British Royal Navy captured the German U-boat 110 and its Enigma machine with all its codes. This was the turning point and helped the code breakers to understand the Enigma's complexities. Alan Turing, an early computer pioneer, whose Turing machine in the early 30s was the first example of a working general-purpose computer. He actually formalized the concepts of algorithms and computations. Turing's story is one of the tragedies of history. Turing was an acknowledged homosexual at a time when homosexual acts were outlawed in Britain. In 1952, he was prosecuted for indecency after reporting a criminal break-in by a young man with whom he had had a brief relationship. He was convicted and, as an alternative to a prison sentence, accepted treatment female hormones. Although the coroner ruled his death as suicide, his mother and other associates believed it was an accident. In 2009, then Prime Minister Gordon Brown issued a public apology for Turing's appalling treatment.